Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Rolling with Dolan. I'd like to begin with an apology. I'm usually recording these episodes on a Friday. The Friday just gone. Really wasn't feeling too great. I was planning on recording, but I couldn't make it through. I was too sick, so I've decided to record a little sort of follow-up episode for you guys, a bit more bonus content. A little bit more about me, the guy behind the podcast. So today we're going to do Kieron Dolan Loves Lists. So I've made a small list of a couple of different subjects. I'll go through them all with you now, and then we'll just go from there. So I'm keeping it short and sweet for each list. I've only got 3 examples of some of my favourite things. I'm going to be talking about film, TV shows, books, songs to listen to when high, and my favourite cover songs. So for each of those topics, like I said, I've got three things to talk about in each subject, and yeah, hopefully they are some things that you've not heard of before, and you learned something. Maybe you do know what I'm on about, and you have heard of these things, and it jogs your memory. And you go back and you start watching or you start listening again. So let's get into it. List 1, films. I'll start out with Jaws. I've talked about it before on other podcasts, I know, but it is my favourite film of all time. So, what do I like about Jaws? I've realised as I've gotten older that one of the main things I liked about Jaws was, as a kid, without knowing about it, it introduced me to the idea of tension. When you hear that Jaws theme, that bom bom, bom bom, when I first watched it, it instantly made me freeze. And all I could focus on was watching what was happening on the screen. And obviously, it's a film about sharks, so they weren't usually good things that happened, especially when you hear that theme. So, yeah, I credit Jaws and rank Jaws so highly because it really did introduce me to the power of film. It's a bit poncy to say that, but as I've gotten older, I appreciate things like that, and it is a work of art to me. And not bad for quite an old film. It came out in England in 1975, so it's definitely the oldest film of the 3 that I'm going to talk about today. Another thing as well, if you are a fan of films and you haven't seen this particular film, I don't know how you can call yourself a fan of films, but you want to look for a monologue in Jaws, which is delivered by the character Quint, which is played by Robert Shaw, and it's a monologue he gives about an incident involving the USS Indianapolis. Quite a famous for all the wrong reasons event involving sharks. So quite a powerful monologue that he gave in that film. So yeah, check that out. Next on the list, switching up a little bit, I want to talk about my favourite comedy of all time. It's a film called Porky's. Yeah, Porky's. It was released in 1982, so it's a little bit older than I am. I was born in 89. What is Porky's, if you've never heard of it? It's basically American Pie before American Pie was even a thought. It's a sex comedy, basically. It's a group of teenage friends. It's set in the 50s, in 1950s, in Florida. So it's like I said, it's basically just a dumb film involving a group of friends that are, some of them are obsessed with sex, etc. This is on the list because it's a really funny, silly film, and my mum actually introduced me to it. I remember watching it for the first time with my mum, and it's just an hilarious film. And every time it would come on, when my mum lived in England, we would watch it together. It's just full of one-liners. It's really fucking dumb, really stupid. So check that one out as well. It's called Porky's. If you do like that one, there's 3 Porky's films in total, so you've got more stuff to watch. The final film I want to talk about tonight, it's my personal favourite film made by the great Quentin Tarantino, and that is Kill Bill, Volume 2, specifically. That was released in the UK in 2004. Now, the reason I prefer Kill Bill Volume 2 over Kill Bill Volume 1, it's quite simple. For me, Kill Bill Volume 1 is all about action. Kill, 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 action, action, action. Now, why I'm a big fan of that, we've seen that sort of stuff before. Obviously, this is Tarantino's spin on it, but we've seen that before. The reason I like the Volume 2 the most is there was a lot more emotion in this film. A little bit more... The violence was still there, but it was a lot more toned down. There was a lot more character development in this one, and more emphasis on emotion. One of the craziest scenes in the film is where the lead character, spoiler alert, gets buried alive, and to us, the viewer, it looks like it's pretty much hopeless. And then we're introduced to my favourite chapter in the Kill Bill saga, Chapter 8, The Cruel Tutelage of Pai Mei, played by the phenomenal Gordon Liu. So, in this little part of the film, we are introduced to Pai Mei, and it's revealed that he has trained Bill and all the assassins in the squad that Bill has assembled, and he's about to train the bride, the lead character in Kill Bill. And he's explaining, obviously, how deadly this guy is, yada, yada, yada. And the bride doesn't really know what to believe, you know. Very quickly finds out that Pai Mei is not the one to test, and he's willing to show her and give her immense power. One of the things that he demonstrates to her is essentially it's like a 1-inch punch, like a Bruce Lee type thing, where what if your opponent is a few inches away from your face and you can't ball up your fist back further enough to create enough force to then drive forward and smash the fucker in the face. What if you can't do that? So the premise is he basically had her getting her hand out against the tip of her fingers out against a board, and that was the distance you could cover, and then punch into the wood and break it. So she's buried alive. We get the Chapter 8, the Cruel Tutelage of Pai Mei story, and then we see the punch come into effect. She breaks out, and she's free. That one scene alone, there's a lot of emotion in that part of the film. So at this point, bearing in mind she's killed so many people in Volume 1, she gets to the character Bud, and this guy looks like a down and out, bit of a waste of space, and we think, no problem, she's going to go through this guy like a hot knife through butter. Absolutely not. Fucks her up. He's still got it. Bud was played by Michael Madsen as well. He's a phenomenal actor. He's been in a couple of Tarantino stuff before. But yeah, so we've got the emotion of us guys that are invested, us people who are watching the film, we're invested in the bride, so we think she's going to go through this guy, she doesn't. So we've got that emotion of, well shit, what's going to happen now? I mean, he's burying her alive, how's she going to get out of this? Then we get another emotion of, we go back in time, and then we see where the bride became a badass. Now, from the footage we've seen and the stuff that Pai Mei showed her, we understand now why she is this phenom that we've grown to love and that we're rooting for. So we've gone from despair, we've gone back to hope again. All within the manner of a couple of minutes. That's one of the phenomenal things to me about film. All of that folds in front of your eyes, and you can see it. You just see it happen in front of you. It's just phenomenal. Another really, really great thing that I always enjoyed about the ending, especially of Kill Bill Volume 2, was the confrontation between Bill and the bride at the very end. I don't want to spoiler alert it too much. I mean, the film has been out for fucking ever, but I don't want to really get in too deep with it. But to me, that final confrontation is a classic nature versus nurture debate. That was not something I ever saw coming from a Quentin Tarantino film. So, yet another example of the power of film and also the power of emotion in film as well. So, that's my list talking about films. Now we're going to move on to TV series. Let's start with The Wire. So, The Wire ran from 2002 and it ended in 2008. So, we had 5 seasons in total. So, if you've not watched this show, there are 60 episodes that you can go back and watch. The Wire was set in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States. What was cool about this show was every season was about a different facet of Baltimore and how the city run, essentially. So, for example, you had a season that was about how the city government ran and bureaucracy. Then we had another season which was about the seaport system, things to do with unions, longshoremen, things of that nature. Obviously, the illegal drug trade. There was a season about print news, media, papers, believe it or not. And there was a really great season about the schools in Baltimore as well at that sort of time. And yeah, so just a phenomenal show for you. A good recommendation to check out. Bit of an old school show. There's probably a lot of actors in there that you know who they are. You might not know them who are in The Wire. Which brings me to my next point. For me, and a lot of people, easily the best part of that show was the character Omar Little. He was played by Michael K. Williams, another phenomenal actor. Omar Little, what can you say? He was a gay stick-up man. He only robbed drug dealers. Or he refers to it in the TV show as in the game. He would only rob people in the game. Meaning he wouldn't rob innocent people, things like that. Omar had a really cool look, a really gnarly facial scar. He'd have this really fucking cool duster jacket, which I'd personally not seen a black character in before, which was, that was cool to see. And Omar always had big fucking guns. He always had a sawn-off shotgun hidden in the jacket, and he'd always have, stupidly large caliber guns, bullets, that could go into big fucking guns. Another thing about him as well, on the terrifying side of that character, was when he would whistle, "A hunting we will go." Every time he'd be going on his way to rob somewhere, he'd be whistling that, and then you'd hear all the other characters in the side going, "Omar coming, Omar coming." But there was a different side to Omar. So obviously we mentioned that he was gay. He was a stick-up man. He robbed drug dealers. Pretty hard guy. You have to be. But when he was in private with his partners, business and sexual, very, very tender guy. And another thing about him is he had a real distaste for swearing. Of all the people in that show who you think would be swearing every other word, you think Omar Little would fall into that character. It was a big thing on that show about swearing, and he had a real distaste for it. Just a phenomenal actor, and a phenomenal character. I don't know who originally wrote that, but that was some fantastic writing. I should know that, but I don't. And finally, I'm going to bring you to my personal favourite in terms of TV show. True Detective Season 1. 8 episodes in total on this season, and it ran from January 2014 till March 2014. Now, there have been a couple more seasons since then. Personally, they just do not hold up to this season. This season was great overall in general, but there's one reason why it stood out, and again, a lot of people agree with me, and that was the character of Rustin Cole, who of course was played by Matthew McConaughey. that character was and is easily the most fascinating character I've ever seen on screen, and that is beats out film, anything. Rustin Cole, True Detective Season 1, in my opinion, of all the shows and films I've watched, that is the best character. Why? To me, he represented fears. Quite odd ones. He represented fears about the nature of existence itself. Throughout the show, he would constantly repeat this phrase: time is a flat circle. Again, he'd repeat that a couple of times. Time is a flat circle. Now, I take that to mean that life, it's basically doomed to repeat itself forever. Not really a happy thought, quote unquote, but yeah, another example of that character. Another theory brung about was religion. For a guy who had almost disdain for it, he really knew a lot about it. Maybe that's why he had all the disdain for it, but who knows. And morality. One of my favourite quotes that Rustin Cole gives in that show is, "The world needs bad men. We keep other bad men from the door." Now, in context, he's saying that to his partner, who they're basically discussing the fact that his partner is married, but he's not being faithful, and is he a good man? So, by saying that, the world needs bad men, we keep other bad men from the door, it's basically acknowledging to him, to Woody Harrelson's character, yes, you are a bad man. Morality, you're cheating on your wife. You are a bad man. However, you're a bad man who keeps other bad men from the door. And when you're a police officer, that's your entire job, keeping bad people from the door. So, a lot there about morality. I also realised I fucked up and I didn't do 3 TV shows. I only wrote down 2. So off the top of my head, another great show I'm going to give you. I'm sure a lot of you watch this though. It's Sons of Anarchy. 7 seasons, drama, emotion, highs, lows. It ran from 2008 to 2014. Really unique, cool show. I've never seen anything before like this, obviously to do with the whole motorcycle culture, motorcycle club culture, sorry. Obviously I know it's never going to be 100% true to it, but I think it got pretty fucking close. So yeah, check out True Detective Season 1, that's my personal recommendation, Sons of Anarchy and The Wire. So, moving into some of my favourite books. We've definitely got 3 for you written down on this list. I'm going to start out with, 2 books that I've covered on my personal Instagram. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, however you say it. It was originally published in 1532. It's not a stupidly long book. It's 26 chapters, divided into 4 sections, we'll call it. Statesmanship and warcraft, goodwill and hatred, free will, and virtue and human nature. One of the reasons this is a favourite book of mine, apart from the fact that it's quite old, is that it's basically a how-to of how to acquire and obtain political power. A lot of the ideas that are discussed in that book and scenarios that are played out are very applicable today. They can definitely be used today. Definitely for bad purposes, but that you can get some good out of some of those practices. Speaking of practices, my next recommendation, of course, would be Sun Tzu and The Art of War. this book is over 1,000 years old. I couldn't really find a definitive date that I would be comfortable saying this is when it was published. It's that fucking old, we basically don't know. The Art of War itself, pretty self-explanatory. It is broke down into 13 chapters. I'll read out I'll give you like a summary, a very, very brief sort of like title summary of the chapters, but like I said, The Art of War, again, how to acquire and how to obtain victory in war is basically what this book is about. It's a little different to The Prince, that's more political power, whereas this is all-out war with a little bit of political power mixed in. But anyway, the 13 chapters. Laying plans, waging war, attack by stratagem, tactical dispositions, energy, weak and strong points, manoeuvring, variation in tactics, the army on the march, terrain, the 9 situations, the attack by fire, and the use of spies. And the third book, this was written by George Franklin Feldman, and this came out in 2008. The title of this one is also very self-explanatory and a subject I didn't know too much about before reading this book, and I still don't now because it's very uncomfortable to read and I'm still finishing it, but it's definitely worth talking about. This book is titled Cannibalism, Headhunting and Human Sacrifice in North America, A History Forgotten. The book is about, well, painfully and plainly is about all of those things in graphic and brutal detail. Various tribes, Native American tribes are mentioned. There's the Apache, I believe it's pronounced Nootka, and the Chippewa, amongst many other tribes that were mentioned that had atrocities committed to them, and they did commit atrocities themselves. It also focuses a lot as well on European settlers who did just as fucked up things to Native Americans and the tribes as they later had done to them by the Indians. This book, I came across I can't remember exactly how I came across this. I believe it was recommended to me, or I saw a recommendation online, but it's a fascinating read about where we have been as a species, as humans, where we've been. You look back at these times and these events that are described, and you almost cannot believe that they're the same people as we are. They're humans. But you look outside, you look online, there's fucked up shit happening everywhere. So are we that different? Is it that much better? You decide. Songs went high. Anyone who knows me knows that's quite often, but 3 songs, if they come on when I'm high, they will forever get played all the way through. There's different vibes to these songs. Led Zeppelin, T for One, and that's from the album Presence, and that was released in 1976. Coheed and Cambria, Welcome Home, and that's from the Good Apollo album, and that was released in 2005. And finally, Soundgarden, Head Down, from the album Super Unknown, released in 1994. Rest in peace, Chris Cornell. And finally, 3 of my favourite covers of all time. Christone Kingfish Ingram and his cover of The Thrill Is Gone. I believe at the time when he recorded this, he was 18 years old. He's a blues musician. Go and listen to him. Kingstone, Kingfish, Ingram. The thrill is gone. He is on the Luke Cage soundtrack from the Netflix series Luke Cage. That was originally written by Roy Hawkins and Rick Darnell in 1951, but it was also famously covered by B.B. King. It Dies Today, their cover of Enjoy the Silence. That was obviously originally published and released by Depeche Mode, and that came out the year of my birth, 1989. And finally, this is a phenomenal cover that I heard this specific cover on Peaky Blinders, and it's Jack White from the White Stripes, and it's his cover of Love is Blindness. That was originally written by everyone's favourite annoying cunt, Bono, from U2 fame, and he wrote that in 1988. So, that was Kieron Dolan Loves Lists. They were short lists, but they were listed on the same. Thank you very much for listening as always, and my apologies again for not getting the episode out on Friday. Couple of shout outs. I'd like to say a big well done and a massive shout out to my friend Dan and his company Odin's Vision. He's recently taken a big step and he's going to be opening his own actual store where he's going to be selling his goods. This is a guy who pre-pandemic, fucking hell, was not doing this. Pandemic's hit. He started his business, his clothing and printing business. He's done that well that he's opening his shop up in Gloucester very shortly. So shout out to Dan and Odin's Vision. You can follow them on Instagram at odins.vision. Shout out to my friend Jack and his customization business. You can find them on Instagram as well at Snorkel Customs, all one word. And as always, shout out to my bearded brothers in arms, the Berserker Beards. You can find us on Instagram at Berserker Beards. Also, shout out to the ladies and our sisters in the Valkyrie. And I will find their Instagram now. As I'm doing that, we want to send a special shout out, get well soon to our girl Sam. Sam is a member of the Valkyrie, our sister club, and unfortunately she recently had an accident and she's going to require some surgery. You can follow the Valkyries on Instagram at the Valkyrie Club, all one word. Yeah, so back to Sam. So she's had a bit of an accident and she's going to be getting surgery. So we're sending her all the love and healing vibes we can from the guys at the Berserker Beards and the ladies at the Valkyrie. Follow Sam on Instagram at PiercedBBW. Give us some likes, make her feel good, and we'll get her twig leg fixed in no time, and she'll be back doing what she does best, shaking the booty. Stay safe, stay hard. Thank you for listening. Take care.